What if some of your long forgotten memories of elementary school aren't as innocent as they seem? What if the gifted and talented program you joined wasn't about higher reading levels or advanced math, but something else? Something far more disturbing. Could a generation of children have unknowingly participated in secret testing? Tonight, we dive deep into the unsettling overlaps between the GATE program, secret CIA projects, and mind control experiments that never really ended. If you're new here, hello, my name is Danny, and this is Wicked Mysterious. I explore all kinds of mysteries, from aliens to paranormal stories to unexplained phenomena. And if you're not new here, welcome back. We are making progress over here with this channel. I've upgraded my camera, I've upgraded my PC, and I did rearrange my recording space. So we are very close to channel memberships, which might be already live by the time you hear this. So I'm speaking that into existence. So I hope you all enjoy this content as much as I enjoy making it. And with that, let's get into the mystery. So today is the episode we've all been waiting for. And by that, I mean me. I've been waiting for this episode. It's been a long time since I've stumbled upon a topic that really sent me down the rabbit hole and that has held my interest. And this is the one. So, just for a little background context, I don't know why I feel the need to say where I got the topic, but I always do for some reason. So, just for context, my fiance and I went to elementary school together in a suburb, which is now a decent sized city about 15 miles south of Boston. And we, like many of you, were lucky enough to enjoy childhood in the early 90s as the last generation of latchkey kids. Although we did have wildly different childhood experiences, I am grateful to have someone in my life who fills the blanks of my memory and someone who I can reminisce with about the people and places of my youth, people who are now strangers to me, buildings and places no longer in existence. Growing up, I never really understood the nostalgia adults felt for the past, but now as I approach 40, I find myself missing the 90s more often than not. And I, like I'm sure many of you, loved the mostly technology free days of my childhood. But the same technology that separates us is the technology that connects us with others with whom we have shared experiences. Experiences that are maybe strange. Last month, we both recalled a memory from elementary school. One that was so disturbing, I lost sleep due to nights spent researching, hence the delay in this episode. So today's mystery is one that has shaken me to my core. So let's get into it. On a totally normal night, sitting in our living room, my fiance, who had been scrolling Facebook on his phone, looked up to ask me if I remembered any weird testing they gave us in elementary school. He explained that his Facebook feed had shown a photo of a box with a question mark on it, and it triggered a strange memory for him. He said he recognized the box as being part of testing they gave him in the early 90s. He tried to scroll back but was unable to find that photo again. He explained that the picture he had just seen was a box that was similar to a shape sorting toy, but that the sorter was behind a partition, and he was told to sort the shapes without seeing the holes in the top of the box. He was just supposed to know where they went. He went on to explain that the testing was done by an official looking man in a suit who did not work at our school. He said there were pictures inside an envelope and they would tell me not to guess what was inside but to visualize. I remember the man telling me over and over again to visualize. They used cards with scenes on them. At this point, the test did sound familiar to me, but not from school. This is ESP testing, specifically testing for remote viewing capabilities. I know this because of the extensive research I did on Swan, which I will get to in a bit. I remembered that both the Center for Psychical Research and the Stanford Research Institute used Zener cards to test ESP. As I explained in the episode about Ingo, there are 25 cards in a deck, which include 5 of each shape: a circle, a plus sign, wiggly lines, a square, and a star. So I quickly Googled Zener cards and showed him and asked if these were the cards he remembered. He said that he did remember those cards. They also had cards with scenes on them and that he remembered a beach scene. They asked him to visualize what card was hidden in an envelope. So at this point, I was totally invested in this very strange memory, and I started Googling around. And first, I Googled, why was I tested for ESP in school? And that's where this story takes a wild twist. He was not the only one to recently remember this. In fact, he was far from it. Google led me at first to Reddit r/Gate Project. So hello to my friends there. I've been talking about making this episode, so maybe some of you came from there. But there are hundreds of kids from the late 70s to the late 90s who were involved in a program called GATE, or the Gifted and Talented Program. Many of them share the same memories of being subjected to strange ESP and remote viewing tests, some having very little memory of what they actually did in the Gifted and Talented program. I do want to pause briefly just to say that there are a lot of people out there on the interwebs who had totally normal experiences in the Gifted and Talented program, and understanding that there are normal experiences out there, that doesn't negate the fact that there are lots, and I mean lots, of kids who had strange, confusing, and even downright disturbing experiences. It's my belief that there were two facets to the GATE program, or that there was something more nefarious going on under the surface, a secret testing program on children that was hidden by using the same name, GATE. This program is also known by many other names, including TAG and GT. So, this is the part in my story where I did start to remember something. I know at the same time he was receiving this testing, I was actually in a Gifted and Talented program. I was in second grade, which would have been the school year 1993 to 1994, which means I was 7 years old. So I remember that I was in what was called a gifted reader program. But strangely, despite having quite a few memories of that time in my life, I don't remember what I did in that program. I remember who was in my class, my teacher. I remember things going on in my life, specific conversations and events, but for the life of me, I cannot remember what I did during my time in the gifted reader program. I know that I did leave the regular class with one other student from my grade, and we went into a different room, which was located in the maze of rooms behind the front office. And I can't remember who the other student was or what we did, just that it was led by someone who was not part of the regular staff of my school. And therein lies the problem with some of these memories, because false memories do happen, and this is a perfect example of potential confabulation. And confabulation is a neurological phenomenon where we create false memories to fill in gaps when we can't quite recall something. So, for example, my lack of specific memories regarding the gifted reader program makes it easier for my brain to fill in the missing spaces with suggested information. False memories can be created by leading statements or questions, and we essentially have no way of knowing what's missing from your own memory. So, through some continued Googling around, I eventually found the cards with the scenes that he remembered, and they're called SRA Reading Laboratory Cards. SRA stands for Science Research Associates, and it's part of McGraw Hill. So, I'm not going to bore you with the details that I've written down of what those cards are, but basically, they're just a learning tool. Kids would work independently on them, and it was part of a phonics or reading program. So there's nothing nefarious necessarily about those, but because the cards often depicted scenes, they could be easily used as a target for remote viewing. So, my research again led me over to TikTok, where there was a creator talking about the tests given either in or to determine entrance to the GATE program. And this testing included the old school headphones, the big square looking ones, which were attached to a briefcase with dials inside. The testing was administered again by an official looking man, often in a suit, who did not work at the school. This testing is sometimes referred to as the hearing test by gate kids, but it's not the same hearing test as given by a doctor or school nurse. And there's a few categories of this hearing test administered by the GATE program. The first is a test in which the child is asked to listen to different tones or frequencies. Some of the speculation surrounds what these frequencies could be, as certain frequencies are thought to trigger ESP capabilities. It's possible that they could have also been testing to find which children possessed the ability of hearing different frequencies. The other thing these headphones were used for, as remembered by some of the former Gate kids, was for listening to strange hypnosis tapes. So, if any of this so far is sounding familiar to you, I would highly recommend being prepared for what you're about to hear, or just skipping it for now until you're ready to hear it. Not trying to be dramatic at all, but I don't want to, I don't know, jump scare anybody. There's been a lot of reports of people who have had visceral reactions and recovered memories listening to these clips. So I'm going to play a clip here and I'm going to leave a link in the description if you want to skip ahead of this. The clip you just heard is the beginning of what's called the gateway tapes. The full tapes are available on YouTube, and I did try to listen to them for you guys. I really wanted to kind of be the guinea pig and see if I could gain any insight on how these make people feel. And I couldn't shake this weird bad feeling that I had. And I don't know if I was like primed to feel that way because I had been researching this episode, or because of some of the comments. Some people had said that they got to a certain point in the program and they just had such a bad gut reaction to it that they couldn't finish it. So I couldn't finish it. I tried to listen to the first few and I just don't like it. If you've listened to this before, I'm sure you know like I'm not new to listening to hypnosis and meditations and guided meditations. So some of them are definitely out there, but this was the weirdest one that I've listened to and I don't know why I have such a weird gut reaction to it. But anyway, all that aside, if you do want to listen to it, it is available on YouTube. The company that created these tapes is called HemiSync, and they're still in existence. And the Gateway tapes are a series of audio recordings, and they were developed by Robert Monroe. He was really into out of body experience research, and these tapes utilize binaural beats to guide listeners through exercises designed to induce altered states of consciousness, potentially leading to astral projection or the ability to mentally leave one's physical body and explore other realms. So essentially, this was a method to access higher levels of consciousness through a guided meditation using frequencies, sound frequencies. So I'm going to read a little from their website. It says, quote, Interstate Industries DBA HemiSync was founded by Robert A. Monroe, is internationally known for its work with audio sound patterns that can have dramatic effects on states of consciousness. Monroe achieved worldwide recognition as a groundbreaking visionary and explorer of human consciousness. His pioneering research, beginning in the 1950s, led to the discovery that specific sound patterns have identifiable, beneficial effects on our capabilities. For example, certain combinations of frequencies enhance alertness, others induce sleep, and still others evoke expanded states of consciousness. Assisted by a broad base of specialists in psychology, medicine, biochemistry, psychiatry, electrical engineering, physics, and education, Robert Monroe developed HemiSync, a low-cost, patented audio technology that facilitates enhanced performance. End quote. Robert Monroe, interestingly, also collaborated with U.S. military and intelligence agencies through his work at the Monroe Institute. In the late 1970s and early 80s, the U.S. Army sent personnel to the Monroe Institute for training in out of body experiences and altered states of consciousness. This collaboration aimed to explore potential applications of these states for intelligence and military purposes. Declassified CIA documents confirm that the agency conducted sessions at the Monroe Institute where operatives participated in experiments using Monroe's hemisync technology. These documents detail the methods used, the experiences of the participants, and the potential implications for intelligence operations. So, again, there's a subset of children who remember hearing these tapes in school and being tested for ESP and remote viewing as part of the GATE program, the Gifted and Talented program. The CIA Reading Room has a document called Analysis and Assessment of Gateway Process. This is a declassified report from 1983 by Lieutenant Colonel Wayne M. McDonnell for the U.S. Army Operational Group. This report evaluates the gateway process and says that this is a method using audio stimuli to synchronize the brain's hemispheres. By achieving brain hemisphere synchronization, individuals can reportedly access altered states, potentially enabling experiences such as out of body travel and deep meditation. This report compares the gateway process to other methods like hypnosis, transcendental meditation, and biofeedback, noting that while these techniques share similarities, the gateway process uniquely focuses on achieving specific altered states through hemisync. This document also discusses possible uses of the gateway process, including enhanced learning, problem solving, and even remote viewing. The report delves into theories from quantum mechanics and consciousness studies to provide framework for understanding how the gateway process might function. It also references concepts like the holographic universe theory and the nature of consciousness, suggesting that the human mind can transcend physical limitations. Additionally, the Stargate Project, a secret U.S. Army unit established in 1977, investigated psychic phenomena, including remote viewing. The project was overseen until 1987 by Lieutenant Frederick Holmes Atwater, aka Skip Atwater, who later became president of the Monroe Institute. So, this is where I kind of freaked out while researching because the Gifted and Talented program, also known as GATE, has the same name as the government project where remote viewing and out of body experiences were used. The so called father of remote viewing, Ingo Swann, was a renowned psychic who was tested by the Society for Psychical Research and the Stanford Research Institute. In fact, he was so good at remote viewing that he created a training program to teach people how to remote view using astral projection. I will leave a card here, somewhere on YouTube if you want to listen to that episode. Super interesting guy. But early research at the Stanford Research Institute, led by Hal Puthoff and Russell Targ, laid the groundwork for this training. The method most associated with the later government programs was CRV. This is controlled remote viewing, and CRV was developed by Ingo Swann. It uses a structured step-by-step approach to improve accuracy and remove interference from just logical guessing. Ingo was eventually recruited by who he thinks were government officials, and he worked for the program called Scannate, named for scan and coordinate, because Ingo was able to remote view specific coordinates on a map, even lunar coordinates. So, this is how he discovered a base on the moon with what he called little people participating in a mining operation of what looked like obsidian. Scannate eventually turned into Project Stargate, which ran from the 70s to 1995. And again, I have done a lot of research on Ingo. If you don't believe me so far, I know this is kind of unbelievable, but it was made available by FOIA on the CIA Reading Room website. If the US military using sound frequencies, hypnosis, altered states of consciousness, and psychic testing sounds familiar to you, I'm sure you have already heard of MK Ultra. So, for anyone who isn't familiar, which actually I don't know too much about it, I'd love to do an episode on it. But Project MK Ultra was a top secret CIA program that ran from the early 1950s to the early 1970s, and its goal was to develop mind control. This documented program was declassified in the 1970s, and it included a whole range of creepy experiments from hypnosis, sensory deprivation, trauma based conditioning, drug testing, yes, including the 3 letter drug that I can't say on YouTube, and a lot of non consensual experimentation on civilians, including kids. But what really stood out to me was how similar the methods used in MK Ultra were to what I was reading about in the GATE program, such as hypnosis, frequency manipulation, sensory exercises, psychological testing, and obviously targeting children. What's weird is that after MK Ultra was shut down, at least officially, a lot of the personnel and practices from that program didn't just disappear. They were absorbed into other research and intelligence projects like Project Stargate. So if MK Ultra was about conditioning consciousness and the gateway process was about expanding it, what exactly were they looking for in children? Because now we have a potential timeline where MK Ultra ends, Stargate begins. What? No, actually, there was ScanNate in between that too. ScanNate, then Stargate. And then remote viewing became a tool used in the military. And then kids in public schools, too many to understand what was even happening, were being asked to visualize hidden images, listen to frequencies through headphones attached to briefcases, and access altered states of consciousness. It feels like a coincidence, but it's more like a continuation from one program to another. Another common experience reported by those in the GATE program is drinking a pink liquid or drinking fluoride. There are some possible confabulatory memories going on here. I don't know if that's a word, but I'm going with it. First is Pepto Bismol. This pink chalky liquid was frequently given at the school nurse if you had an upset stomach, but I think most people know the difference. But I guess it is possible that memories are being confused just because of the similarity of Pepto and the pink liquefied fluoride. Second could be disclosure tabs. These are pink tablets that, when chewed, show plaque buildup on teeth, and they were intended as an educational tool to teach children how to brush appropriately, better brushing habits. But in some schools, kids, regardless of whether or not they were part of GATE, were actually given fluoride, also called Swish, daily. Fluoride supposedly helps dental health in children, though our dentist and pediatrician are at odds with that. But regardless of whether or not it helps teeth, it does have a dark side effect. Fluoride binds to calcium in the pineal gland, leading to calcification, and that's not conspiracy, that is true. It also inhibits enzymes involved in melatonin production, which can lead to sleep disturbances. The pineal gland's main function is to receive information about light, specifically daily patterns of light and dark, to help control the circadian rhythm. The Cleveland Clinic website about the pineal gland says, quote, "Since the pineal gland was the last of the endocrine glands to be discovered, and scientists still aren't fully sure of all of its functions, the pineal gland has long been a mysterious organ. The pineal gland was commonly called the third eye for many reasons, including its location deep in the center of the brain and its connection to light via the circadian rhythm and melatonin secretion. Many spiritual traditions believe it serves as a connection between the physical and spiritual worlds. Chakras are prominent in certain forms of Hinduism and Tantric Buddhism, and the third eye chakra is considered to be the sixth chakra in your body. It's believed to be linked to perception, awareness, and spiritual communication, and also linked to the pineal gland. While there is no scientific evidence to support these claims, many forms of spirituality and many cultures emphasize the importance of the third eye chakra and the pineal gland. End quote. The pineal gland has been called the third eye, the seat of the soul, the inner eye, the crystal palace, and is thought, though not proven, to produce DMT. But so far, studies have only been able to prove that melatonin levels can fluctuate during spiritual experiences, leading to feelings of euphoria and altered states of consciousness. Some people have memories of being given fluoride drinks as part of the GATE program, which is incredibly disturbing if it is true. Some other reported commonalities between people who were in the GATE program are a forehead scar, vivid lucid dreams, spontaneous astral projection, experiences of levitation, and childhood memories of floating or flying around their home. the use of a metronome during testing. Children who were part of the GATE program were tested for high IQ and possibly the ability to perceive time and space from an extrasensory perspective. Proponents of this theory think that government agents working under the GATE program, a division of Project ScanNate or later Project Stargate, was looking for children who had the innate ability already. Some speculate that these gifted children were being targeted so that they could later be used as spies in remote viewing projects. Although there was a standardized training program for remote viewing, it was proven with an MRI that Ingo Swan's brain was fundamentally different from that of the average person. They determined that his parieto-occipital region of the right hemisphere of his brain was structured differently than everyone else. So, although it's possible to be trained in remote viewing, it's possible that Project Stargate was seeking out children who already had the innate ability to remote view, as having this gift resulted in more accurate remote viewing results. A darker theory suggests that these children were sought out and fed large amounts of fluoride to prevent them from using these gifts. People who see beyond the confines of our conditioned reality and structured society are more likely to challenge the status quo, and it would have been in the government's best interest to stop this during childhood. One strange facet to this story also showed up in a meme I found. This meme says, "Who remembers these from elementary school? Only 90s kids will remember these." And the image shows a fluoride drink, an ink blot test, what looks like a nuclear or chemical plant, those SRA cards, the consciousness energy grid, telepathic communication, Zener cards, and tangrams. I wish I knew who created this meme so I could ask them why they included the chemical plants, because in an odd, probably unrelated connection, now I'm gonna like really go down the rabbit hole with conspiracy, but I just thought it was so weird how this happened. I called my mom to ask her if she remembered them doing any strange testing on me when I was in elementary school. And she said the only testing I remember is when some government agency wanted to test a hair follicle, but I told them no. And I was like, why would they want my hair follicle? And she said, oh, yeah, they wanted to see if the kids at your school were affected by the massive chemical dumping in the next town over. And she explained that there had been this company that was shut down in the early 80s and deemed a toxic waste site. And this site happened to be just over a mile away from my school. And this, like I said, sent me down an entirely new rabbit hole. So I checked it out on a website called toxicsites.us, and they explain about how this is a 20-acre site and that it was a chemical mixing and batching company from 1912 to 1983, and it included mixing, packaging, storing, and distributing various products including pesticides, disinfectants, soaps, floor waxes, and solvents. And it said that some of the materials were stored at a tank farm, and that others were in outbuildings, and then some of the raw materials were stored on drums or just disposed of directly into the soil or into the nearby river. So not good. And let me see, I'm just scanning through my notes here. So it's since been pretty much remedied, but part of the problem here was that the river that they had been dumping into was diverted into the reservoir, which served 90,000 people in nearby towns. So that's good. It's not being used as a source anymore for that reservoir, but there was a well that was used as part of the municipal water supply, and it was only 1,500 feet from the dumping site. So this was labeled the 14th worst Superfund site in the country. And a Superfund site is a location managed by the EPA, and it receives direct funds from the government and holds the responsible parties accountable for the cleanup, also makes them pay back the government for the expenses incurred. For decades, neighborhood kids in the town over from me would play there, and they would throw what they called moon glob or green goo at each other. It was a jelly-like toxic substance, but they didn't know at the time that it was toxic, and the parents didn't know that it was deadly. And then people, of course, started passing away. A lot of men from town died from lung cancer and bladder cancer. And while I don't really think that the chemical spills are related to the testing of children for psychic abilities, I really thought it was a very strange coincidence and connection that someone put a chemical plant on that meme. I'm probably thinking way too deep about it. I think it was just meant to be funny as like an educational trauma core type meme. But interestingly, many chemicals released in spills, especially industrial solvents, pesticides, and heavy metals, are neurotoxic, meaning they affect the brain and nervous system. So, this can result in hallucinations, disorientation and confusion, memory lapses, blackouts, out of body experiences, and seizures or intense sensory distortions. These are all considered altered states of consciousness, but not in the fun, let's do hallucinogens type of way. They're often the result of damage, stress, and poisoning. I thought it would be interesting to take a survey and see if we can find commonalities between kids that believe they were part of the GATE program, or had strange experiences during this program. Over the next few weeks, I'm going to be creating a survey so that I can collect that data. So keep an eye out on Facebook, and I will post the survey once I have it completed. But in the meantime, let me know what you think in the comments below. I'd love to hear your experiences. And thank you again to my continued Patreon supporters. I will see you in a few weeks. Stay mysterious.